Web 3.0? The initial phase of internet between 1989 to 2004 was called Web 1.0. During this time, there weren't a lot of internet users. The capability was very much limited. It was just readable, static web pages. Just imagine it was almost like Wikipedia. There would be long pages of text and sometimes graphics and hyperlinks. That's it. People could read those data but never interact with it. For example, they could read a web page and can't even express what they feel about it. They can't leave a comment. They can't interact or even add value to an already existing web page. At this time, it was more like a broadcast, just a sudden transition where people who went to libraries could actually find those publications online and read them. Simply put, it could be like a library of resources. Instead of going to a physical library, they could find information here and read it. But remember, at this time, the user had to pay for every web page that they read. These web pages were mostly of basic text and severely lacked any sort of emotional or interpersonal exchange. And so people hardly stayed on this platform for a very long time. Simply put, it was just a static web that was pulling these queries. What you see and I see on the internet will be exactly the same when we search for the same keyword. However, everything changed in Web 2.0. This was the time approximately between 2004 to 2014. A lot of developments took place during this phase. JavaScript and application programming interfaces brought in a lot of interactable elements to this. At this stage, we could both read and write on the internet. Facebook was a platform of this age. You could actually contribute it, you can be a creator there, and you can also consume the data. For example, you could also upload a picture and you could also comment on your friend's posts. There were two things that were happening. During this phase, we didn't just consume the data, we could also input the data back to the internet. We could also contribute to something. While this was happening, on the other side, when we were the ones that were consuming the data from the web pages started collecting data from us. Let's take an example. Meta, Facebook. Facebook wasn't just a static web page where we could read something. You could also post something. You could have a page of your own. You could have a login and identity of your own. So you could input your data back to the platform. And in turn, the platform was also collecting data from us directly and indirectly. Directly in ways like getting our age, our mail ID, our phone number, etc. And indirectly accessing our location data and our behavioral data of how we interact with certain topics, like liking or commenting over a cricket match or disliking some cat videos. All of these information went back to these central servers, which was owned by huge corporations. Remember, you are using the platform for free here, and in exchange, they are collecting this data. Very few centralized authorities with power were able to do it because it was very expensive. Initially, the data was collected by these companies so that they can give us better content and personalized experience. However, while they piled up on all this data from billions of users, they found a way to monetize it by selling our data to third parties. That is advertisers. When they personalize their content for us, they also were able to personalize their ads. That was much more relevant to us. And data became the most precious resource at this. Privacy became a huge question because we, with our consent, gave these platforms the ability to access our data for free. And the companies were monetizing our data with the advertisements. This model was very successful because with this huge amount of data, these companies were actually able to fine-tune their machine learning algorithm to even accurately predict an action that the user was going to perform even before the user knew that he was going to perform. For example, in a family of a husband and wife, when the husband is browsing for hiking gear and tents, and the wife is browsing for weekend vacations, these corporates had so much accumulated data that was organized right from their earnings to their likes, dislikes, their interests, their demographics, and could fine tune to exactly where they were going this time for the weekend getaway before the couple could actually decide it. It's quite interesting and very debated. One more thing is that this data was massive power in hands of very few companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, etc. Everyone had to use these platforms and trust these companies with their data, with the notion that they would act in the best interests of the users and the creators. They just had too much power that one day if they decided that you weren't fit to their platform, they could just remove you in one instant, and you wouldn't even have access to that data that you actually were feeding them. So this led to the third phase, Web 3.0, where the whole system is being shaken up. So it's not about data here. If you look at Web 2.0, that is just an element of too much trust on certain handful of companies that they would do right in the interest of the creators and the users. This was actually a problem which Web3 is trying to solve. Web3 is actually an idea. It is a new age in progress. It's still not very much defined, but can be described as a group of ideas that are shaping the future of the internet. It includes blockchain, distributed networks, artificial intelligence, cryptos, NFTs, and giving a sense of digital security to the users and more power to the users' data. It has infinite number of possibilities, and we don't know what the future holds and how it might evolve or develop to become a complete Web3 phase. To start with the basics, it put forth decentralization with distributed networks like blockchain. So the data is not stored in one particular server owned by one monopoly company. It is in a distributed network where not just one copy of your data is there, but thousands of copies of it are stored. The term Web 3.0 was actually coined by Gary Wood, who was one of the co-founders of Ethereum. This system promotes a trustless and a permissionless but a very secure system. So if data is not at the center of Web 3 and it is not traded for monetization, then what keeps these companies afloat? That is the token economy. It is said that in Web3 you are not the product, but you are the owner. It is a read, write and own economy. Let's understand how this works. In this economy, the user is actually incentivized for using the platform and also contributing to it. These contributions could include anything ranging from verifying or even inputting certain data or finding bugs or uploading content, etc. There are also other platforms which actually incentivize people for using the platform itself. This incentive includes tokens and crypto coins. These tokens are issued in limited quantity by the companies or the projects. The users who collect these tokens can actually use it for trading any other entities or other crypto coins. So the more you use the platform, the more you have the ability to accumulate it. But remember, these tokens and coins would only have higher value for limited number of tokens minted. So that's one problem. As you use this platform, you start accumulating these coins. The more coins or tokens you have of one particular platform, you have more authority or a sense of ownership over the decisions that is made within that organization. This is called DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, where there is no higher-ups like CEO or the management controlling all the big decision making. But everyone who has accumulated these coins has the right to vote on the decisions that the organization takes place. It could be as simple as whether or not to bring in ads to the platform. If everyone votes no for it, then the ruling is not passed. You see where it's going? It's totally community driven. People who use these apps and these platforms are able to actually make decisions about the organization. It's the most crucial running element of what's called DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. We'll learn more about this in our upcoming videos. Getting back, this gives a sense of ownership. there are also other ways of giving the ownership back to the users. Let's take an example. You keep playing PUBG for about a year. You buy different skins worth thousands of dollars. But one day the platform decides that you didn't follow a certain rule and totally bans you from playing the game. So here what happens is every data that you have given the organization is gone, and everything that you purchased within the game, for example the skin, is just gone. It just disappears into thin air. This is solved in Web3 with NFTs, that is non-fungible tokens. In our example, if the skins were of NFT, even if you were banned from this platform, you would still be able to sell those NFTs for a price. And speaking of abandoning, Web3 also talks a lot about this censorship. It gives a total freedom of speech with no censorship at all. This could go either ways. However, it's the community that actually would be making the decision. So if it chooses to rectify all of these hateful speeches and abuses within the community in future, it definitely can. With Web3, semantic webs plays a huge role. Let me explain. A semantic web uses something like a solid pod to store all of the user's data in one place. Like in Web 2, instead of your data being with Google or being with Amazon or being with LinkedIn, for example, it's just in one place, and this data can also be accessed by other platforms if necessary. You would definitely have a web ID connected to your pod and have information encrypted. You can choose to control it, share it, or secure it even further. This makes it very much interoperable, and with peer-to-peer networks and distributed systems and all the cryptographic security, Web3 is definitely a future that I'm looking forward to. However, critics think otherwise. In majority of the blockchain projects, the VCs or the initial investors actually accumulate a huge number of the tokens or the coins of that project. Of course, the users are going to be incentivized, but that's comparatively very much lesser than what those VCs hold. So when the project is at its peak, a rug pull or a dump is very much expected when a majority is already centralized with the organization and the VCs, the shareholders of that project. We imagine a decentralized future, but this is actually questionable. Also, there's huge problem of scalability of Web3, of what would happen when the entire world chooses to follow this model. Again, depending on one particular network would be more feasible, but would bring a lot of challenges in implementation. And then comes the problem of environmental impacts and energy utilization while running all of these.